Good morning. I am going to take further where my colleague Omar left us a bit on innovation. I'm going to speak mainly about the collaboration model that we have in the Eindhoven region, a collaboration model that you can apply to every domain actually, also to smart city, but maybe I'm going to focus a bit on technology. Technology for the people, for sure. Well understood, because in conferences like this, it's always extremely interesting to see how the same we are and how much we differ as well. We also have an award in Eindhoven, by the way. A few years ago, we were nominated the Dutch city with the highest number of people with autism. And we were very proud of that, because we are the home of technology pioneers. So we have a lot of engineers and mathematicians, etc. in Eindhoven. But first, because we are not Vienna, where is Eindhoven? Eindhoven is in the Netherlands. That's a country you know, probably, somewhere in Northwest Europe. And we are in the southeast of the country, close to the Belgian and the German border, close to Düsseldorf, for example, as you see here. And you notice immediately that I'm jumping to the regional level. I'm not speaking about the city of Eindhoven, although it's in the title of the program. I'll be speaking about the region. Because in our case, the city and the city region is not the same, but we are really working very, very closely together in almost everything we do, and especially on the things which relate to economic development and technology. And I myself am maybe one of the illustrations of this, because I am responsible for European affairs. I have a Brainport Development email address. Please contact me if you would like to agree or disagree with all what I'm going to say. But I'm also responsible for the same topic within the city of Eindhoven. So within the city administration and within the department of the Regional Development Association, I'm doing the same job. I am very well aware of the current discussion here in Budapest on high-rise buildings. We also have a discussion on that. We agree maybe a bit more. This is a picture that many colleagues in the future will share probably, because this is a new building which was announced a few weeks ago to be built. So it's, yes, it is a rendering image, as you see many rendering images often, but this one is really going to happen. We call it the Dutch Mountains in a very flat country, and it's supposed to be the biggest wooden building in the world at this moment. It's going to be finalized by 2030. Very important here to mention, of course, we're not a capital city. We're only the 5th city in terms of inhabitants. So the city is almost 250,000. The city region is almost 800,000. But we're only the 5th city in the Netherlands, so not the capital city. And we're a rather new city. After the Second World War, the city was pretty much destroyed. So we don't have unfortunately, we don't have a big monumental heritage to take care of. But we come from far. In 2030, when you see these buildings, plural, high-rise, as you see, we come from far, because this is a painting by Van Gogh, who was born in our region, by the way, and it's called The Potato Eaters. Very poor people in a very poor land, and we needed each other to survive, literally to survive. So collaboration is really in the DNA. Everybody speaks about collaboration, but in our case, we needed to collaborate, because otherwise we were just simply going to die. And trust. From that also, trust, mutual trust in each other was key. So then, at a certain moment where basically everything began, we had city rights since the Middle Ages, but we were a very small city. And then two brothers decided to start their company in Eindhoven. Actually, they asked the question to the neighboring city, and the city government there said, no, you're not welcome. So they went to Eindhoven. The result is that the city that said no now has 80,000 people, and the city that said yes has 250,000 people. So that's one city government decision 100 years later. Because this is where it started, because the history of Eindhoven is innovation. We always speak about innovation for the future, but for us, it's the past and the future. And then 125 years later, because Philips has celebrated its 125th anniversary a few years ago, 125 years later, we're here. This is a company called ASML. It's a spin-off from Philips originally, born in 1984, and it is making, and this is not an exaggeration, the most complex machine ever built in human history. These are so-called wafer steppers. It's in the semiconductor industry. These are the machines on which computer chips are actually printed. So Intel, Samsung, etc., they buy their machines. There's hardly any computer chip in the world which has not been printed on a machine made by this company. They can literally measure the growth of your hair between now and now. Also not a joke. So this is quite impressive, and we're very proud of that. The history is innovation indeed, because in between those two pictures, there is a whole history of innovation. There's a history of regional economic development based on knowledge. And this building is also, again, an illustration. This is for people who are into technology, the famous Philips NatLab, which was more or less their private university, the playground of engineers, where this auditorium, the one on the two pillars, where every Friday morning the engineers presented their new developments. So this is literally the room where the first cassette was presented. This is the room where the first CD-ROM was presented. So every week there were inventions being presented. A lot of them never made it to products, but a few did, and a few are still famous today. So Philips, again, Philips. You cannot see anything in the city which doesn't have a history in Philips. Even today, with numerous companies, the Philips fabric, so everybody has a working history in Philips, which is also creating this network in the city region. So these personal networks are key because they have a heritage today, and it's finalizing because all these people are now retiring. This is really key in how we collaborate, how it works. This is a picture from a production building quite a while ago. And we were one of the many European cities who were one company towns. We were not the only ones, I know very well. But Philips was doing everything. So they need engineers, they start their own university. They need product designers, they start their own design faculty. They need people, they import them from the rest of the country, and they built their own housing district. They had own maternity care, they had their own fire brigade. So they were running the city. Until this moment in the early 90s, when we had, I'm talking a lot about the history now and the context because it's really important for what's happening today. Until the early 90s, when actually a few companies, but especially Philips, went through a major restructuration, and in a very short period of time, 1/3 of the working population lost its job. So we were really in a very bad situation, and that is where the Brainport spirit started. So the mayor, the then-time mayor, the rector of university, and the president of the Chamber of Commerce, so local governments, business, and knowledge institutes, joined forces. They said, we have to manage this situation now. Our people need our help now. But in particular, we have to make sure that if this happens again in the future, and it will, because there will always be a next crisis, we have to make sure that the consequences will be less devastating as they are now. So this is the start of the Brainport Triple Helix collaboration. And it's resulted in the Brainport Foundation. This is a rather technical picture, but I know a few of you in the room are interested in this. So we have a Brainport Foundation, which is Triple Helix composed by the parties you see on the right side. 1/3 local government, 1/3 companies, 1/3 knowledge institutes, from vocational education over University of Applied Science to Technical University, which makes the regional innovation strategy. And then there is an executive agency of the foundation, which is Brainport Development, my employer, which implements and oversees the implementation of the agenda. We call ourselves ecosystem orchestrators. It's a fancy word, but that's what we do. like this. This is a picture that many cities and regions will show you these days, but I think we're a bit different. Why? Because we have a few big companies in the region, like Philips still, ASML, the new kid on the block. And before, this type of companies did everything themselves. But gradually, they have been starting to collaborate with other partners, not just outsourcing component production to Asia, for example, which Philips did at the time. At the Philips televisions that you see now, it's nothing to do with Philips, it's just a license bought by a Chinese company. But in their own operations, they have an open innovation collaboration. Open innovation is very closed. It's just closed within a large community. They have clear agreements on who's sharing the risks and the profits. It's about risk sharing and profit sharing, because the technology developments are so fast that they need to be very fast, but also to share the costs. So today, a big company like Philips maybe still does its basic research and development themselves, and at the end, the sales and service, but in between, there's a big collaboration with partners. Why is this important? Because this is the most important slide in our context. This is why we are more than Philips and why we are more than ASML. On the left side, you see the bigger companies in our region. The middle and the right picture are their supply chain. So the first tier, second and third tier suppliers. There you see that the large majority of their suppliers is based in a close distance of the Eindhoven region, within 40 kilometers. So these are global companies, but the majority, large majority of their suppliers is still based within a reasonable distance from the head office. So proximity really matters. And this is, of course, the key of regional development. If you read very well, you even see that these suppliers have contracts with more than one company. So this is the resilience element. If something happens to one of the big companies, the other companies won't go broke because they still have other clients. This is important for the regional development. This is important for keeping employment. This is important for resilience at large, but it's also important for the bigger companies. In the time of the financial crisis, 2008, 2009, a company like ASML was shortly in problems. They didn't have a lot of new orders, let's say. They survived very well, but a few of their suppliers didn't, because they were too dependent on ASML. That's a big problem, because ASML needs their suppliers just as much as the suppliers need the OEM. So now there's a policy within these big companies that a supplier can only have a maximum percentage of its turnover being dependent on that contract to protect each other. So it's really a common game. Today, as said, we are more than just a one-company town. We have a diversified economy with a focus on high-tech. That's our specialization. Your specialization can be something else, of course. You need to focus on what you're good in. We are good in high-tech. And these are companies which in some way all have a link with Philips. Their spin-outs or departments have been bought by those companies. Like many French colleagues, for example, ask us, why is Atos here? Because Atos is a French champion. Well, it is. But they bought a big department from Philips at the time. That's why they're here. Very important here as well is that the Philips legacy also plays today in the technology legacy. We are now, for example, also focusing on photonics. That is, photonical chips, for example, they work on the basis of light instead of working on electricity. So that goes faster. For the data economy, this is important. It also consumes less energy. So if you're talking about smart city, I'm not telling you about the smart city projects that most cities do, including Eindhoven, but this is also our contribution to the Green Deal, basically. So if this photonical chips evolution works, we will contribute largely to the energy consumption worldwide of data centers, for example. And these photonic companies today built on Philips research from more than 30 years ago. So that's how long also it takes to come to this stage. The long breath, the consistent vision in what you want to focus on is really key, we think, in where we are today. So then, a few figures. You will get the slides later. I'm not going to read everything. The big line is the patents. So more than 50% of all patents being filed in the Netherlands originate from Eindhoven. Again, a testimony of our knowledge intensivity, which also explains our name, Brainport. What is Brainport? In the Netherlands, we have a main port policy. That's a national policy. It means the economical gateways to the country. There's traditionally main port Amsterdam, seaport Rotterdam, and now we have Brainport Eindhoven as the third economical region of the country, brain referring to knowledge-intensive manufacturing industry. And we are very complementary. Yesterday with some people we met, I was explaining before we were a bit jealous maybe of Rotterdam and Amsterdam. Today we're not. We are a very confident region, and we know we're complementary. So we have a very grown-up conversation now. Also with the national government. This main port status means that we have a regular meeting with the national government to discuss the challenges that we face and to find solutions. A big point, also mentioned by the colleague from Vienna, awards. And I had the Autism Award already, but we also had the award of smartest region in the world. Did we work to get this award? Yes, we did. Why? Because we are coming from being a small-scale economical reconversion project, really looking at ourselves and trying to recover from a crisis. Today we are this a region of national importance, and in between there was this title. And this title of being elected as the smartest region of the world was really important for the people in our region, to feel proud again that we are Eindhoven and we mean something. We're not just that city and that region who suffered from a crisis years ago. So we are in a new era now. And the era is our regional agenda, which has very common titles, so that's nothing strange about that. Also, when you read the chapters in our agenda, there's nothing revolutionary about that. I think every development agency can more or less copy-paste these titles. But what is maybe different is the way how we operate within these chapters. And for example, on the innovation, we are focusing on key enabling technologies, and then we look for markets where we can deploy these technologies. We're not working on each of these crossings, but we're focusing. And we're actually focusing more and more. In the future, we will be focusing more on semiconductors, we will be focusing more on batteries, and we will be focusing more on photonics. So we have a very sharp focus. We don't do everything. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen in the city or in the region, but we as an agency and as a foundation focus on these growth sectors. And we start with strategic projects and programs. There are a few here which end up in clusters. If something is working and there's a persistent need for such a facilitation program, then we turn it into independent organizations. And what is new, an evolution of the last years, is that, for example, Photon Delta is now the national cluster on photonics. It started within Brainport. The Battery Competence Center is the National Battery Competence Cluster. So more and more from a regional reconversion exercise, we're turning into a national actor. Today also on the request of the Ministry of Economic Affairs, we're writing the National Semiconductor Strategy. So we're constantly growing. And the next step maybe is the European level. In the talent issue, I think important here to mention is the challenge-based learnings that our university are applying. So really, really close collaboration with the companies in our region who propose projects, challenges to the students, the student teams who collaborate closely with the companies. It offers a lot of internships. It offers jobs. So actually we give a job guarantee. Everybody who starts with a technical education in Eindhoven, we guarantee them a job when graduating. And we have some very interesting startups resulting from these student teams. And that's where we are today. And then tomorrow, we have 70,000 people working in high-tech industry today, and we need 70,000 70,000 more in the next 10 years. So we are facing a doubling of the technology jobs that we have today. So we need to scale up. And we want to contribute to the sustainability goals of the Paris Agreement. We need to think very carefully about broad employment, so the social cohesion in the region. It's a very big topic in the city government, for sure. And we are very conscious about the European debate on strategic autonomy, and we think the technologies we have in the region contribute to the strategic autonomy of Europe. In an open spirit, by the way. We are not anti-American or anti-Asian, on the contrary. But this is quite an issue because we don't have houses available, so we need to build a lot of houses. And we especially, and this is the most pressing issue, we need to have a lot of new people. We need to skill people, we need to reskill people, we need to upskill people, and we need to attract a lot of people from abroad. They are needed to keep the big engines of the big companies working. In this company ASML, which I mentioned already a few times, 1 in 2 people are non-Dutch. But their suppliers, tens of companies, they employ mostly Dutch people. So we really need the international students and the international knowledge workers to keep our development going on. And we're very, very worried about the plans of the seems to be upcoming new government in the Netherlands, who seems to be turning down the possibilities for this. So here we are back at the picture where we were at the start, these high-rise buildings. This is the area around the central train station, so really in the center of the city, which is an empty area, by the way. So it's a big mobility crossing, but almost no people are living there. So part of this housing solution, we're going to find it here by building these new apartment blocks here and in the rest of the city and in the rest of the region. And this is part of a deal we made actually with the national government last year. We get, for the housing and for the mobility solutions, we get 1 billion euro from the national government if we put on the table 600 million euros ourselves. And for that, we are working, I think, on innovative solutions. For example, the small picture in the bottom is what you will see underneath, so a new bus station. And it's not only going to be the city of Eindhoven in which the bus station is located, but all the surrounding cities will financially contribute to this bus station, which is quite unusual, let's say. We're doing that on 4 domains now. We are going to start a mobility fund. We're going to start a housing fund. We're going to start a talent fund. And we're going to start a social cohesion fund, to which private companies from the region will be contributing as well. This is an ongoing exercise, but the decision has been made. Why do companies contribute to this? Because they fully realize today that their individual strategy as a single company is endangered if these solutions are not met. So they are now going to financially contribute to something which most of you would think this is a task of a government, a local government or a regional government or a national government, but public authorities. So in our region, we're going to do this in the public-private partnership collaboration. So this is a story we really like to share with you. We hope you can take inspiration and even customize it. Don't copy, customize it to your own needs. And we're also quite confident in this European debate on strategic autonomy that we're quite safe. Here we are all Europeans, we share a lot of values together, but we're not scared that Chinese regions will copy this, because we're quite confident that they can't, because you can build a campus like this anywhere in the world, but we're quite confident that you cannot build the collaboration culture that we have in the Netherlands. Last, but definitely not least, because this is going back to the smart city topic of the conference, in Eindhoven we do all these smart city projects as well. We have a lot of living labs where we test and validate new technologies to reach our climate goals. I myself am the vice president of the European Network of Living Labs. I can highly recommend. We have a few Hungarian members, by the way, which can help you in this exercise as a city or as a region. But we're also very concerned about deployment of technology in the public space. So since 2 years, we have a commission advising the City Council on technology and the ethical deployment of technology. Because it's not because you can do something that you want it to happen. We started quite a few years ago with this on the issue of collecting data in the public space and what companies can do with it. Nothing. I mean, they can use it, but they don't own it. So if you are, this was the Eindhoven case, if you're renewing your electricity grid, for example, and your light poles, the company providing the lights, which is building all these sensors in the light poles, they can use the data, but they don't own it. They cannot resell it because it's your data. So on this, we are building with a commission that advises us on the deployment of technology. And with this, I would like to end. And this is also very funny. We are sponsoring the football team. And why do we do this? To be famous in the world. It's a good team. Sometimes every 2 years they play champion. And companies in the region decided we're going to continue sponsoring this. Originally this was Philips. Now it's a group of companies and they decided together we're going to put Brainport on the shirt. Because like that, the region will be known globally and like that we can attract people. And it works. Thank you.